Hello, everybody. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about this program called EditGPT. And I'll share you the screen. Um, EditGPT is a plugin that you attach to either a Chrome or Edge browser or a Firefox browser. And what it does is it interfaces with ChatGPT to make it easier to edit and create track changes. So that's the main, if you will, benefit or superpower of this plugin, which allows you to track changes in editing documents or text in ChatGPT. So here, if you take a look at the landing page for EditGPT, the address is editgpt.app, so .app, editgpt.app. So you can Google that very easily, editgpt.app. It'll bring you to the page, the landing page. Here you'll see two buttons, one of which I've just used earlier before making this video. I just clicked on that, which took me to the browser add-ons or the extensions, and I've already preloaded my extension here. So what it does is, you can see in this visualization or this animation, it shows how when you have this plugin attached to GPT or ChatGPT, it allows you to ask the program to edit and show the track changes to a document. So you can see here, the animation shows that it's highlighted in green and red and underlined as well. Some of the prompts that they suggest on the landing page are very, very straightforward. They're saying you can use prompts with this plugin to proofread an essay. That's probably the most common thing, to improve or edit or to suggest changes, editorial changes. You can proofread your thesis here. It says you can improve your CV. You can enhance and probably write your cover letter. You can proofread a college admission essay. You can make your writing sound more colloquial and more like, I think the suggestion here, more like a mother tongue speaker. And then you can make your business proposals better. Okay, so those are some of the uses it suggests. This is how you put it on, but how you attach it onto your browser. Pick the button that works best for you, whether you're using Firefox or Chrome or Edge browser. And here are on another landing page, on the page that is when you click on how to here, it brings you to, I'm not going to walk through all this stuff, but what it brings you to is some suggested prompts. So you'll see here are some suggested prompts that you can use in ChatGPT. So if you're in ChatGPT, you can use some prompts to enable or to enable the edit GPT function. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a passage of text that I've used in the past. This is a passage of text here I'm showing in Word, a passage of text that I had ChatGPT write in January, so many, many months ago, 6 months ago, when ChatGPT was rather new. And I had it write a passage about climate change just to demonstrate some of its usage and its strengths and weaknesses. And so I'm using the same passage again, in a sense, to keep using the same passage of text as a way of ensuring or introducing a certain kind of consistency to the different tests and different kind of attempts to try these attach these add-ons or these other interfaces to ChatGPT. So what I've done is this is the climate change text that was written by ChatGPT many months ago in January. And what I've done, because I wanted you to get EditGPT to edit, right? So what I did was I asked AI to rewrite it to appear as if that passage was written by someone who was a ESL student, English as a second language student, who's just learning English, and to make sure that there's many serious grammatical writing mistakes in this passage. So what I did was I just copied this, and I pasted it into ChatGPT with one of the suggested prompts, which was this prompt. Very simple, right? Proofread this, improve the clarity and flow, but very simple, right? And of course, these are just suggested prompts. You can write longer or shorter prompts, but let's just use the one that EditGPT is suggesting. So let's go back to ChatGPT. So there it is. Proofread this text, improving clarity and flow, right? So what it does is I pasted in the two sections, the two paragraphs that are weak in writing, that have some grammatical errors. I'll just click enter. And so you can see here right away that EditGPT is doing its work. And what it's done is I think it's quite clever in the sense that it's using color, red and green. Red, a strikeout to show the letters, the words and letters that it's replacing, with the green, which is underlined, which is the grammatically corrected and more improved writing. Okay, so that works well. And why I think this is actually a good plugin is because if you've ever tried to do editing in ChatGPT, it will edit for you, but it certainly will not have a track changes feature like this. You won't be able to see which features, which words and which sentences were changed, because it doesn't have this interface of color coding and using underline to show what was suggested and what has been replaced. So this is very good, because if you've done much editing in Word or even in Google Docs, track changes is a very powerful feature, a very useful feature, and a very common feature that people use when editing documents. And so what you can do is you can now copy this passage, Control copy, and I'll just create a new document here. And I'll just paste it in. Paste. So now it doesn't really, I guess it's not showing the track changes, because you'd have to go into review, and then you'd have to go into changing your simple markup to showing all markup. So now it shows all of the markup. It's lost some of the features in the sense when, as if you recall, here it had the green and the red, and it's kind of changed it to just the strikeout. So it's replaced, if you will, the red strikeout with in this case, a kind of turquoise strikeout, and then underlining the word that is suggested. So here, so what is, I guess, good in this case is when you're using track changes in Word or in Google Docs or whatever, in whatever word processing program you're using, you can review, right? You can then say, I accept this change. So yes, I accept changing pressing to urgent, accept. And then I change require to necessitates, and so on and so forth. You can keep saying, clicking accept, and this allows you to review what is suggested and and not just accept, if you will, suggestions that the machine might make for improving your writing. You can actually review, I think, within Word. So I think it's what I'm trying to say is I think as a plugin, it is very useful as an adjacent tool, or if you will, a kind of a sidecar to Word or to Google Docs. So and then of course, if you wanted to accept all of these changes without reviewing them, you can, as you know, in track changes, you can just accept all changes, right? You can also undo that as well. So I think, I think as a very simple plugin, it's very, very useful, and it works well. You can see that if we just look at that first sentence, climate change are a complexity and pressing issue. It changed it to climate change is a complex and urgent issue, right? So that is a grammatically, those are good grammatical suggestions, right? Those are identifying the problems in the sentence and fixing them through the large language model, through GPT 3.5. Now, the question would be, can you get track changes by just asking it to do that, right? Without this plugin? No, as I think many people who have used ChatGPT, it doesn't typically display red and green colors with strikeout and with underline, right? So it's very difficult to get it to do that. But let's think, could other AIs do that? So we know that ChatGPT is one AI that's useful for editing and writing and being an assistant. But what about other AIs like Bing Chat and perhaps Anthropic's Claude 2? So let's check. I've got Bing Chat loaded up here. And what I simply did was I took the exact same prompt, proofread this text, improving clarity and flow, and added one extra sentence or one extra clause, and use track changes to visually show the differences. And it's exactly the same ESL passage. And it was able to. It says, I have proofread the text and made some changes, and here are the differences. So it's able to do that. It's showing us what it's suggesting to correct, which is similar to what ChatGPT did, which is no surprise because under the hood of Bing Chat is in fact ChatGPT 4. So actually it's a higher level or so-called more sophisticated large language model, whereas the free version of ChatGPT is only 3.5. So this is actually, you can argue, a superior, if you will, large language model, because it's the next iteration of it. And you can see it's used strikeout and then bold. So that's quite good. It's maybe not as visually compelling as the red and the green, but and maybe your mileage may vary. I have this in dark mode, so it might be different when you're not in dark mode. So it is working here, yeah. So that's not bad. So maybe you don't need this plugin, but I think if you look at these suggested changes, they seem to be much more here than the ones that are being suggested through Bing Chat. In fact, if you look at this second paragraph here, it only suggested one change, or just a couple of changes, or maybe 3 changes. But if you look here, it's actually made many, many changes, actually split the last paragraph into 2. So there seems to be a different set of, if you will, weights in EditGPT that's different than Microsoft's Bing Chat. And so I still think, you can get track changes through Bing, but perhaps they're not as complete or as thorough or as deep as the ones through EditGPT. But of course, going back to the prompts, depending on what prompt you use, let's make that a bit bigger. Depending on what types of prompts you're using, rewrite this, proofread this, improving any incoherent parts. I mean, you can mix and match all of these suggested prompts. Again, you don't need to use these prompts. These are just suggestions, but they are good ones or a good place to start, right? And also, let's look at what would happen if you tried to use Claude 2. Okay, so Claude 2 is another AI, very powerful. And Claude 2, unfortunately, is not available for Canadians right now because it's still, I guess, in beta. But you can use Claude 2 if you are through a VPN. And so I've opened the VPN and I have access to Claude because it hides my ISP. So this is Claude, which is very similar in terms of a kind of a chat interface, which is very similar to Bing Chat or to ChatGPT. And so I've already preloaded my question. Again, it's similar, it's identical, I'm sorry, to the prompt that I pasted into Bing Chat. I wrote, proofread this text, improving clarity and flow, and use track changes to visually show the differences. And I had a really tough time. It didn't work. It didn't really work. It wouldn't show track changes. Here it says, here is the text with suggested edits and track changes. But as you can see, there are no track changes here. So I say, please use bold and strikeout to visually show the changes. And then it says, here it is in bold and strikeout, and it's not in bold and strikeout. And I write, I can't see the changes you made. Are you able to identify them with bold and underline? And then it says, apologies, you're right. Bold and strikeout don't show up clearly here. Let me try again with bold and underline. So it's kind of being very polite and compliant, but it never succeeds. I still can't see it. Can you use strike through? You're right. Underline is hard to see. Let me try again with strike, and it tries again. So it really struggles with strike through, bold, and underlying to show track changes. So I think in Claude 2, not very successful. Maybe if you rewrote the prompt, maybe eventually you could probably, with some tweaking, eventually you could probably get it to underline something, I suspect. It probably is a limitation of the way I wrote the prompt, which just says use track change. Maybe it doesn't understand track changes. I would have to give it perhaps some more examples of what I'm looking for. But that's a lot of work when all you would need to do is use EditGPT, which seems to be much easier and quite powerful right out of the box. And you're able to copy that and then paste them into whatever word processing program that you're using. So let me stop the share there. So, what are my concluding thoughts? I mean, I think, EditGPT absolutely does work. It is very useful. It is actually helping a user use ChatGPT to edit, but with the feature of track changes, which is so useful for editing. And it does it, I think, in a very robust way because it uses color, underline, and strike through to show those changes or the suggested changes. And you're able to copy and paste that into your word processing program, and it shows up as changes that you can accept or not accept in your word processing program. Bing Chat, as I showed you, and Claude 2, they don't really have that feature built in. You can, as I showed you in Bing Chat, you can kind of get it to do something similar, but then you do have to do a bit of prompt engineering to kind of push it in that direction. So out of the gate, it's not actually wanting to do that. And Claude, as I showed you, had a really tough time getting it to do any kind of visual track changes. I wanted to also show you, I forgot, Grammarly. I guess that's the you know, the big elephant in the room is Grammarly, because Grammarly, of course, is the main, I think, thing that people think about when they think about editing software, because it's been around for so long, and many students and academics and scholars use Grammarly. And you can see here, when I pasted this in, the passage, it suggested different, you know, grammatical changes, but in terms of the more kind of robust and more kind of deep changes, it doesn't really do that unless you select premium, right? Meaning it's the premium version, the paid version. Here it says you can try it for free. It has 7 additional writing issues that it can help fix. But once you click on that, it will take you to the page where you have to put in your you'd have to put in your credit card information. So it's a bit of false advertising. It's not free in that sense. And also, when you install the Grammarly plugin for ChatGPT, which I should make a video about as well, but I have it installed here, as I showed you, I think earlier. I have the Grammarly app installed. If you can, let's see, if I regenerate that, I think it should come up here. There should be a small dot. Oh, there's the Grammarly dot. Yeah, so you can click on Grammarly here, which is integrated as another plugin, and then it will make suggestions here, right? But of course, it's saying there's not much to change, because in fact, EditGPT has suggested all of the changes already. So there's nothing that that Grammarly would suggest, but it also, if I had not made these track changes, Grammarly would have suggested that you enroll in its premium version for those suggestions. So in that sense, I forgot to actually talk about Grammarly. In that sense, I think you could argue that EditGPT is kind of like the poor man's Grammarly, or the Grammarly Premium, because it's providing you all of these kind of robust editing suggestions, but without having to pay for a Grammarly Premium, or perhaps Grammarly Go premium subscription, right? So Grammarly Go, which is actually ChatGPT under the hood, right? Grammarly Go is integrated into ChatGPT. It's using AI to suggest, if you will, more robust editing. It might actually be better. I don't know, because I've not tried it. I haven't paid for the subscription, so I'm not sure. So Grammarly Go could be better than EditGPT, but certainly I think EditGPT is good enough to catch many grammatical mistakes, and of course you can play around with it without any cost. So it's very simple to use in that sense. It's already integrated into ChatGPT, which is quite different than Grammarly, which if you didn't have the plugin, it's taking you out into its own Grammarly interface. EditGPT, of course, also integrates well into Microsoft Word or into Google Docs, in the sense that there's really no integration. All you're doing is you're copy pasting, and the track changes will show up in your document. So that's really, in some respects, one of the best ways to have integration, which is there's no, if you will, friction. You just copy paste, right? So it's very simple. It's something that everyone knows how to do already. And of course, the other big elephant in the room when assessing the use of EditGPT for academic purposes or scholarly purposes or for editing purposes is the question of academic integrity violation. So is it an academic integrity violation? It would be if your university or your school or your institution prohibits the use of machine tools like this, which helps you refine and edit your document. If there's an actual prohibition, then it would be a violation. But because this is currently the Wild West of AI and generative AI in general, it's unclear whether it is an academic integrity violation in your use case or in the institution that you're part of. And you'll have to check on that yourself and think through, if you will, that ethical question. I can't answer that for you. I know some schools are suggesting, or some universities are suggesting, that when using machine learning or generative AI, that you cite that use, right? That you tell the reader to whom you're submitting the work that you've used AI. And one of the quite interesting ways in which you can cite, I thought it was quite interesting, I think it's University of Edinburgh has a policy now suggesting that you cite it as personal correspondence, because that's interesting, personal correspondence, because the idea is that you're actually chatting with somebody, which is correspondence, a personal conversation with someone, but that someone happens to be a large language model. So anyway, lots of food for thought in terms of how to think about whether the use of machine editing is a form of academic integrity violation. It's incredibly useful, certainly outside of the academy in terms of private sector or business application. No one would see it as a violation. People would see it as an amazing tool. So it's kind of interesting how we adjudicate or how we assess whether something is a violation. It really depends on the context. Okay, so final thought is EditGPT, 2 thumbs up. It works really well. It integrates well into your word processing. And I could see it being very useful for especially students who are trying to get some type of assistance in terms of editing and want to actually display it in their Word document or their Google Docs document as track changes. And also, I do think some professors I've read are trying to suggest track changes as a way of, if you will, defeating or keeping students honest who might be using machine learning or generative AI to do their work. So I think this video demonstrates how EditGPT and probably other plugins in the future will provide track changes. So I think the track changes form of, if you will, assessment or assessing that it's really done by a student is now, I think, put into question. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. And I highly encourage you to try out EditGPT. It's quite fun to use, and it's quite interesting how it if you will, edits and changes your document, or improves your document, I should say. Okay, thanks very much. See you next time.